What's going on, you guys? This is Trent here at Rexburg Motorsports, here to do another machine walk around with you. Now, here at Rexburg Motorsports, we have a lot of different employees that own a lot of the different machines that we sell here at Rexburg Motorsports. So over the next couple weeks, I'm going to do some interviews with the employees that we've got here about the machines they've got, what time they've put on it, and what they've enjoyed, what they haven't enjoyed about some of the machines, to get you a little bit more feedback to help you guys with the buying process. Now, to start these videos off, I decided to do the one on my machine. So this January, I picked up a 2019 FC450 Rockstar Edition from Husqvarna. I've put 40 hours on it over the season, and I've thoroughly enjoyed this bike. But I wanted to answer just a handful of questions on this bike to help you guys understand what you're getting into when you get a Husqvarna FC450. Alright, so over this season, I've put 40 hours on this FC450 Rockstar Edition, and primarily it's been at the track. So I love to do motocross, love to do arena cross, and then I've done a couple trail rides on this bike. It wasn't super well suited for trail riding. Gearing is a little tall, standard, stuff like that. So the majority of the time that I've put on this bike over this season has been on the track. Gone to the dunes a couple times as well. Now, these FC450 Rockstar Editions come pretty set up from the factory, so I haven't done a whole lot of modifications to this thing, but I will go over the small things that I did. I did replace the bar mounts. I went to the Fly Racing bar mount, and I did that primarily because I kept twisting the stock ones. I twisted 2 of the stock ones over the last 40 hours of time that I've put on this bike, so I finally put one of these on there. Super built, super thick. I don't think I'll ever twist one ever again. And then I did a lower bar bend. The stock Husqvarna bars are actually quite low, but they're really wide. So I went to the Ricky Carmichael Evo bend. They thinned them up just a little bit, and then they kept pretty close to the same bend as far as that goes. I replaced the slave cylinder piston and seal. I put the one out of the KTM Brembo unit into this Magera one. That was the only thing I had to change. I could leave the housing, I could leave the rest of the clutch all the same, but I did replace that piston and O-ring. I'll put a little picture of the diagram on the video so that you can see what that kind of looked like on a diagram. And then the last thing I've done to this, outside of new tires, I put Dunlop MX33 tires on this. And then I did a Super sprocket combo with the steel rear sprocket. I stayed with the same stock number of teeth. And then I did a primary drive X-ring chain. So those are the only modifications that I did to it. This bike, where it was the Rockstar Edition, came with the FMF 4.1 titanium slip-on muffler system. It came with the Power Parts wheel set that comes with a stronger set of rims, stronger spokes, with the front having a cross 3 pattern instead of a cross 2, and then it's got the billet hubs. The Rockstar Edition also comes with the semi-floating front rotor instead of the fixed rotor that the stock bike comes with, and then it comes with these awesome factory triple clamps. This triple clamp setup is actually the same one that their factory teams use, and it's supposed to change the flex characteristics of the front end to give you a better steering feel and a better clamping area on your forks to keep your forks working good too. So this bike was awesome straight from the factory, and I left it pretty much like that. So over the last 40 hours, I've had a couple of things that have gone out on me with this Husqvarna. They've all been small things. They've all been little things that I was able to fix pretty quick. The slave cylinder, that seal that I replaced, that I put the Brembo unit in, I had to replace it because the stock one actually went out. The O-rings in those were known to fail, and we had found that the Brembo unit was a better O-ring design, and so it handled it better. I broke the right-hand side subframe, which was a bit of a pain in the butt. The subframes, you know, on the other bikes, the KTMs, the Yamahas, the Hondas, Suzukis, Kawasaki's are all aluminum. One of the things that Husqvarna does differently is they've got a composite subframe, and it really helps the flex characteristics of this frame, makes it really feel compliant over the bumps and stuff like that, but they do have a tendency to break if you crash. And I had one break on me over the last 40 hours. It broke at about the 25-hour mark. So I'm curious to see how much longer I can get out of this next one. So far, so good. And then the only other thing that broke or that is going out is just in the last little bit, my front brake has got really, really spongy. Now, I've bled it twice this season. I was having a braking issue that I actually ended up finding out that it was a lever problem. So it's been bled quite a bit, and I know I haven't got air in the line, but it all of a sudden went really, really mushy before this last ride that I went on to. So, you know, those are about the only things that have happened. I replaced the subframe. That was pretty easy to do. Replaced the slave cylinder, O-ring, and piston. And then I'm going to get a master cylinder rebuild kit for this winter to throw into this thing. So a couple little things have gone awry on this, but the motor's been great. I've done my oil changes every 4 to 6 hours using semi-synthetic oil. I've done my air filter very, very religiously. I've got 3 different air filters that I rotate through. And so, you know, overall, I will say that this bike has been phenomenal, and it's held up to the abuse really, really well. This thing has been phenomenal. The biggest thing that I love about this FC450 is the lightweight feeling of this bike. This bike is very, very light. In fact, it's lighter than most of the Japanese 250Fs. Actually, all of them. This bike comes in at 225 pounds with everything except fuel. Super light. 15 pounds lighter than most of the other 450s in the class, and you can feel it. Every time that you're moving it around, you can tell how light this thing is, and it feels super light in motion. This has been one of my favorite aspects with that. Thoroughly enjoyed the fork. It's the AER fork from WP, and I've enjoyed having the ability to change the spring rate with the air pressure. The dampening has been really good. I've played with the clickers a little bit. I ended up on my fork. I went a little bit stiffer on the spring rate as far as the air pressure goes. I was running 152 PSI of pressure, but then I softened the compression adjuster on this fork. So that helped the fork stay higher up in the stroke, but then softened it to keep it nice and soft over the initial bumps. And I've thoroughly enjoyed that. I haven't had to mess with the rebound very much. I did play around with it, but I ended up going back to the stock setting. And then with the shock, I slowed down the rebound 2 clicks, set my sag to 105, and left it alone. High-speed compression, low-speed compression have been great. So loved the suspension. Now, my favorite thing, though, about this bike has been the motor package. The motor on this FC450 is, it's so good. Super, super broad, super linear, and it allows you to get aggressive. It's not the most aggressive hit that you'll see with the 450s in the class, but that's one thing that I actually, as a smaller guy at about 150 pounds, I thoroughly enjoy about this bike, that I can ride it more like the 250Fs that I've owned in the past, and it doesn't get away from me and it doesn't tire me out. Now, it does have 2 different maps on this bike. It's got map 1, which is the standard map, and then map 2 is a more aggressive map. I ran mine in map 1 with the traction control on. Thoroughly enjoyed it. That traction control is awesome on these bikes, and you can really feel a difference on this. Now, with most of the tracks that I've had to ride on this, they get a little bit slick. They get hard packed and very, very slick, and so that traction control really helped this thing hook up. Now, what would I change about this FC450? You know, to be completely honest with you, the things that I wanted to change on this, I had to change pretty quickly. That slave unit, I didn't like knowing that it was going to fail, and then when it did fail, that was upsetting. So replacing that was something that I did right off the bat. And then, you know, the composite subframe, to be completely honest with you, it drove me a little bonkers that it broke. But to be honest with you, the way that this subframe makes the bike feel, the way that it changes the power characteristics compared to the KTM, the way that it changes the flex characteristics compared to the KTM, I thoroughly enjoy the way that it feels. And so it's kind of a double-edged sword. Don't love that it breaks, but I love how it feels, so I'd keep rocking it, to be honest with you. I don't know that I'd change really anything else. I went to a little skinnier bar after replacing that O-ring. This thing has been phenomenal. Thoroughly enjoyed it. If you're considering getting a new 450 for this coming year, the Husqvarna FC450 is an awesome bike. I have loved my Rockstar Edition, and I hope that you've enjoyed this little video. Get a little bit of an idea of what it's like to live with one of these for the last 40 hours. I'll tell you, super enjoyable with just a couple small tweaks that you need to make. Thanks so much for watching these videos that we've got here posted on our YouTube channel. If you do have any requests, feel free to leave those on the comments below. But over the next little bit, we're going to be going into a YZ250X. We're going to be going into a KX450, a YZ450, Terex 4, and we've got some very cool machines coming up in the pipeline. So watch for those videos to come out in the next little bit, but thanks so much.